j'ai du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Well, think about that. If you're a parent that have a son or a daughter in Afghanistan, and the commander-in-chief has known for months that Vladimir Putin and the Russians have put a bounty on their head to have them killed by Islamic militants. And the President of the United States does absolutely nothing about it. And it's considered so serious that the National Security Council convenes in March to consider sanctions or at least a diplomatic scolding and trying to figure out what actions to take. And 3 months later, no actions have yet to be taken. Think about being the father or the mother of a child in Afghanistan, or the husband and the wife of a spouse who's in Afghanistan. And this is considered so serious that the CIA station chief warned about it in Afghanistan, that it was, quote, well known in Afghanistan that Vladimir Putin had put bounties on young Americans' heads for Islamic militants to kill them, and the president's doing nothing. This is considered so serious by our intelligence agencies that they convene a meeting at the end of March, and we notify, our government notifies the British government to warn them that there are also bounties on the heads of British soldiers from Vladimir Putin. And yet, this morning, the White House wants you to believe that despite the fact the CIA knew it, despite the fact that the President's own National Security Council knew it, despite the fact that it was so serious that they convened a meeting in March to consider a range of options to take against the Russian government and Vladimir Putin for putting bounties on the heads of young American troops, despite the fact it was considered so serious, they notified the British? Think about this. You're being told that they notified the British government, but they didn't even tell the President of the United States. Now, I just ask, how stupid do they think you are? And how low does the president think he can take you and his supporters in supporting a president who was told in a presidential daily briefing months ago that the man that he called a friend of his in May was putting bounties on the heads of U.S. troops back in 2019. It is just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And here's the thing, it's all going to come out. The truth is all going to come out. There are going to be people testifying before Congress under oath. They've got the presidential daily briefs. They have the intel. It's all going to come out. So, Republican senators pick sides, and there are only two sides to pick here, by the way. There are only two sides to pick here. This isn't about being a Republican or a Democrat, a Trump supporter or a Trump opponent. You can pick the side of U.S. troops, or you can pick the side of Vladimir Putin. There's no gray zone here. You can't stick your head under the covers and pretend that Donald Trump's just going to go away. Because yes, he is. He's going to get voted out. You think he is. So you're thinking I can hold on? No, you can't hold on for 6 months. Speak out for our troops today.
Yeah, this stain will stay.
Speak out for our troops today.
It is Monday, the 29th of June of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. Oh my, what a weekend. I don't know, so much happened. Can we all fit it all in? Of course we can. That's why we have River City Hash Mondays. We slice and dice and repurpose what was left into a fine gourmet meal that you'll really enjoy and will stick to the ribs all day. That's how we do it here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Food for the mind and the soul. Because that's what virtual reality is. There's no bodies here. Jeez. Anyway, how was your weekend? We had a rather, Saturday was fairly warm, and then, not too warm. It was in the low 80s. And then yesterday we had really a lovely Oregon day, overcast. Some people would call it gloomy. I called it lovely. It was really lovely, cool, overcast, a little drizzly at times. Partial clouds or clouds blowing through throughout the day with a bit of a breeze, and that was very, very nice. So we'll get more into the weather during the weather and fill you in what's coming up. But you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. That's right. Donald Trump is a traitor. And I told you so. I have trademarked that term, by the way. I told you so. And I expect royalties coming in my lifetime. I don't want to have to wait until after I'm dead. All right? I've been doing that for my novels. Jeez. The only hope I have is, something happens after I'm dead. Everything's supposed to increase in value on your demise. They keep telling you. Yeah, well, I think it's probably like getting in an auto accident. You think you hit the lottery with the insurance companies? No! The only stories you hear are the ones who hit the lottery, and those are only a few who got hit by lightning and then collected the lottery at the insurance company. Most payouts are, measly amounts that barely cover whatever the materials were to fix your car. If you have factored it out, it never pays your medical bills, or barely. So, yeah, you don't hit the lottery in every single instance. And Trump is a traitor. Let's not forget that. I told you so. I told you so. Trademark. My God. I wasn't being rhetorical when I kept saying he sold America out to Vlad. And, whoever else he can sell out piecemeal to other hostile foreign actors like China. So, Vlad has had bounties on the heads of our soldiers, and we've known about it since January, but I guess because he was being impeached, we couldn't bring that up. Yeah, that's right. And the Pentagon and the military have been beating down his door. Well, look, I'll do another, or give you another trademark that I've come up with. Another phrase, and that is, property is always more valuable when delivered vacant to a hostile foreign power. You let a virus decimate the country. Hundreds of thousands dead already. And, yeah, I know, he says only like 130. It's going to be hundreds of thousands, you know, and we won't even be done. And that's going to happen pretty quick. So you have a virus decimating the country, very little action, either by neglect or design, and I often wonder if it could be both. It could be. Anyway, we got that. And, you know, why not kill a few soldiers in Afghanistan and give some Taliban warlords what they want? And that's a bit of money and, you know, whatever else. It's kind of get back for Russia pretty much ending up with Vlad because of Afghanistan. But I have to tell everybody we're not the Soviet Union, okay? Our collapse won't be like that. No. We're a little different. We're going to go to the mall. You know, maybe we might have colored alerts. You know, you're under an orange alert for the demise of democracy. Oh, okay, good. I'll go shopping. It'll feel better. And people won't wear a mask. I don't know what the hell is going on. Anyway, the roosters are coming home to roost, or the chickens are coming home to roost, and we were told that before too. And now here we are. So, just as a reminder also, I was wondering how convenient it was for myself and about another half dozen liberal voices on this tiny little Facebook group in Ashland, Oregon. Suspended by Facebook, all of us up to 30 days for correcting Trump disinformation. When I say Trump, I mean, you know, the maggots. Disinformation about COVID, disinformation about voting, disinformation, and they demand the links. You give them the links, you run around, you do their gish gallop, and it's never enough, of course. And when they can't really refute anything that you say and you just keep coming back, then you're suspended for scurrilous reasons. Not even anything to do, you know, well, it is everything to do with being a liberal voice on Facebook, and that's really not quite allowed. Oh, yeah, they're getting rid of hate speech. Yeah, bringing up the history of race riots to refute the claim by racists that there's no racism in America is considered hate speech, apparently. Or the most ridiculous aspect, it could also be considered sexual misconduct, which is another way of reporting liberal voices speaking about politics that have nothing to do with sex. And I guess if, you know, you've been suspended before because of purely political speech that was reported as something other, and somehow Facebook's algorithm, or somebody in some backwater area of the world and they have the disclaimer, you know, some of our moderators are in parts of the world where their local customs are a lot different than ours. Yeah, you mean like being able to question the president of the United States? They don't do that there, and so we're not allowed to here now on Facebook? I know it's a private company. They can do anything they want. Well, thank you, people who are taking their money out of Facebook. Advertisers have caused Zuckerberg to lose, what, 80 billion? I hope it's that amount and more. Yeah, I wouldn't be so upset with Zuckerberg if he wasn't such a schmuck. You know, now we're finding out that, you know, they took down rules in place when Trump was still a candidate. And people are wondering why in this reportage. I wonder why they took down rules and gave Trump a pass. Because they were working with Cambridge Analytica and the Trump campaign. That's why. Jeez. And apparently they still are. Because how do liberal voices get routinely silenced in these tiny groups all over America? We're not alone here. There's other groups just in the area. They're suffering the same weirdness. And then you go back to the pages and you look at it and you go, wow, it's kind of quiet now. You got the lady here running against Markley, who's a QAnon devotee who took an oath over the weekend to Q on the television stations for all the TV to see, as if that's a good thing. And you go to these little tiny Facebook groups and these community pages, and a lot of people think that was a good thing. Well, there's also an article I saw that the silent majority is neither silent. Trump's silent majority is neither silent nor a majority, and that is what I've been saying since Nixon. We recognized Nixon's silent majority was anything but. They were the loudest whiners in the world. They were personal injury attorneys coming out and pointing guns at Black Lives Matter protesters back in the day. Yeah, Ken and Karen, personal injury lawyers pointing guns at kids. Speaking of kids, did you see what the Aurora Police Department with their mutant ninja turtle guys did to a violin concert in memoriam to a kid that they killed, an innocent kid that they killed, who was a pretty good little violinist? And so they had a violin vigil with families and little kids. And what did the cops do? Yeah, they cleared it out with pepper spray, batons, and a lot of violence. Because apparently, as I noted, if you've killed an innocent kid who played piano, then played violin. Violins are now dangerous weapons, and you cannot allow that in the public square. And they were in a park, the public square. So I have an idea that possibly what is wrong here is that the cops are just not complying with our orders. And the only reason that we keep beating on these cops on Twitter and elsewhere is because they will just not comply with our orders, and now they need to be corrected. All right? A little bit of turnabout is fair play, don't you think? And I don't mean choking them off literally as human beings, but I am talking about as an organization. If they can defund the KKK and the neo-Nazis in Oregon and drive them into compounds in Idaho, because that's what happened. Oops. I guess there's some compounds in Idaho that police departments across America can populate. Might even drive up the economy of Idaho. Not that the liberals there would like it, and there are liberals there. They're just not. They're just they're forced into silence, shall we say. The silent majority, indeed. So we got that going for us, which is nice. And I have to say that the powers arrayed against the truth are mighty indeed. But we're America, and we are Americans, and we are not as stupid as Trump thinks we as a whole are when he's using his people as a gauge. And he hates his people anyway. He would never allow any of his voters that show up at his rallies into Mar-a-Lago. Are you kidding me? Those people at the villages. What's up with the Zoot Suit golf carts too? Man, if I got a bunch of money to spend for my pension, the last thing I'm doing is spiffing up a golf cart to look like a Zoot Suiter. Not that Zoot Suits are bad. I love Zoot Suits. But it's a little bit different when you look at who's driving it, because those aren't Cuban Americans driving those golf carts, let me tell you. No, we're talking Ken and Karen. Yeah, white power. Trump never heard white power because it's so common. It went below his level of awareness. It's so common. Sort of like, Vlad has bounties on U.S. servicemen. So tell me what else is new. He didn't get the intel briefing because he says it was, how did he put it? It was not valid intel or whatever. It was, everybody knew it. Who cares? I have an election to run. I don't want my numbers being tanked. It's the equivalent of keeping people on ocean liners, cruise ships, so that you don't have to count their numbers when they come ashore from being sick. Sort of like that. Okay? It's all transactional. It is all so transactional. Yeah, our snoozing sous chef is snoozing. I warned you. He's a lovely guy. I love him. So that's why he's here. All right. We better get in with what's on the rest of the menu here because we could just go on and on and on. I think what Joe, and I'm not really into Scarborough that much, but, I can grab that as the latest vid to put into audio. And, yeah, the GOP does have a choice. You can choose the side of Vlad or you can choose the side of the U.S. troops. And there's no gray zone, and you better speak up today. Well, Lindsey Graham went and played golf with Trump yesterday to fix the story. I never heard any intel. Well, you know what? It was so valid the Brits got it from us, and they found out that it's true. And how many of the 20 or 40 service members killed in Afghanistan had bounties paid? I'd like to know that one. Follow the money. And in this case, really, follow the rubles. On the rest of the menu, powerhouse fracking pioneer Chesapeake Energy filed for bankruptcy protection. Wow, man, they're down to about $155 million from having about $155 billion. That was quick. I wonder why. Well, when you're squeezing out the last bit of microscopic oil out of, rocks, microscopic bubbles in rocks, pretty soon you're going to run out of that, too. I told you so. Trademark. Kansas State football players will boycott all team activities over a racist tweet by the founder of the school's pro-Trump America First group. Well, the founder is the only member of that group that they can find, but he's been doing a lot of mischief on campus. And a North Dakota Army National Guard unit that operates a squadron of UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters has been told to muster for active duty later this year in Washington, D.C. And what is later this year? Right in time for the election. I wonder what Trump has in mind. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where an Israeli court ordered the release of a former Air Force general and leading critic of Netanyahu from jail. They put him there because he's a critic. And the Rolling Stones are getting in line to threaten Trump with legal action for using their songs at his rallies, despite several cease-and-desist orders. All that and more. On West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage is our Patreon link. And if you could, even in these perilous times, afford the cost of an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds our way, we are able to stretch those dollars really beyond compare and pay our bills, fly under the radar, resist as the founders originally intended, and fulfill our civic duty. And thank you for allowing us to do so. And we need your help now more than ever, and I know it's tough. So if you can, please do. And thank you so much to those who continue to do so. I cannot tell you how much it helps, and it really does. So thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, it is so simple. You just go to @NetrootsRadio. Tom takes care of that because he made it simple, and that's the way it should be. Thank you, Tom. I, of course, take care of @JusticePutnam for all of that complicated aspects, and we know how much that is. And I also post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime and get that linked up on social media, except I can't on Facebook now, at least not me. But we have workarounds, and Kelly does that because she does the social media stuff too. Thank you, Kelly, at least on Facebook. Thank you. Okay. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West. And the most important part of this whole spiel, besides asking for money, is to pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., 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 etc. Okay. Boy, we sure still have a raging virus pandemic, don't we? I went to the store yesterday. I'm just going to just give a little bit of more of a rant and a spiel here real quick before we dive into this first offering here on the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. I did go to the store yesterday for some needed, not wants, but needed items. And I was appalled. I was actually quite afraid to go in, and I don't live in fear. What I do live in is, guilt. I don't know, is it guilt? I don't want to have to think about bringing sickness to family, friends, and strangers because I picked it up from somebody who's irresponsible not to take the basic precautions in not spreading a virus in a pandemic. I guess even though we have a spike, apparently over in that county, they've decided that they're not going to, encourage even employees to wear masks. There were some that were wearing masks and there were lots that were not. And we have a spike in this state because of idiots who decided on their own that they were going to rebel against the jackboot Democratic governor of Oregon who just wants to keep people well. She's like Big Mommy. And now they're dying, and we have a county commissioner also, it's not my county, but the county over, and since it's close, we're right on the border, we get their news too. A Josephine County commissioner doesn't believe that the pandemic exists because he doesn't know anyone personally who's died. Show me a person who's died. And so people did. But he's another one of these weird Trump brat maggots. Something's, I don't know, put holes in their brains. And the only question is, were the holes in their brains there before, during, or after exposure to Trump? The mind reels trying to figure that one out. All right, this first offering comes out of the Associated Press by Kathy Buswitz and Tully Arbel. Chesapeake Energy, a shale drilling pioneer that helped turn the U.S. into a global energy powerhouse. Wait a second. We always were. And then somehow our oil got underneath the Sahara Desert. How did that happen? What's our oil doing under their desert? Well, they filed for bankruptcy protection. Because I kept telling everybody, fracking, they're pulling out microscopic bits or bubbles of gas from tiny little rocks. Not even big rocks, but tiny rocks. Microscopic bubbles of gas in rocks. And that's what they're going for. There's nothing there. The only thing that's left are microscopic bubbles of gas in rocks. And they went after that, and they thought that that's going to go on forever. Did they? Did they? Well, the Oklahoma City-based company said yesterday, Sunday, that it was a necessary decision given its debt. Its debt load is currently nearing $9 billion. It has entered a plan with lenders to cut $7 billion of its debt, and that means, contractors not getting their money, and said it will continue to operate as usual during the bankruptcy process. In other words, taking advantage of their employees and only paying them pennies on the dollar when it comes to it. The oil and gas company was a leader in the fracking boom, using unconventional techniques to extract oil and gas from the ground, a method that has come under scrutiny because of its environmental impact. Like causing earthquakes. Yes. In Italy, it became illegal to frack because in an already unstable tectonic area, they were fracking, and all of a sudden they were having really crazy earthquakes and landslides, and the only thing they could attribute it to was fracking. So they stopped the fracking, and guess what happened? Those earthquakes stopped. But we're not even talking about earthquakes. We're talking about all sorts of other aspects that happens when wildcatters decide, we're just going to use not horizontal, but they went with vertical. It's horizontal when they go sideways into a well instead of up and down. So they don't even have to, be drilling on your property to grab it from under your property. Because it's not yours anyway. You don't know the mineral rights. Rarely do people get that when property is transferred. It's like right there in the bottom line. It's the boilerplate part of the property transfer contract. More than 200 oil producers and frackers have filed for bankruptcy protection in the past 5 years, a trend that's expected to continue as the global pandemic saps demand for energy and depresses prices further. Founded in 1989 with an initial $50,000 investment, Chesapeake focused on drilling in underdeveloped areas of Oklahoma and Texas. It largely abandoned traditional vertical well drilling, going up and down, instead lateral drilling techniques to free natural gas from unconventional shale formations. Exactly. So unconventional, it was microscopic bubbles of gas in rocks. Let's get that. It's akin to getting the last whale to get the last drop of oil. I don't know. We got to get them all. And then after that, we'll scrape the seafloor for any carcasses of whales that might be there. It became a colossus in the energy markets, eventually reaching a market valuation of more than $37 billion. Then, the first in a series of financial shocks hit Chesapeake as the Great Recession sent energy prices into the basement. The company closed Friday, valued at around $115 million. That's $115 million. Anonymous worker bees at the Associated Press bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Kansas State football players say they will boycott all team activities until administrators create a policy that would allow a student to be expelled for openly racist, threatening, or disrespectful actions. The move that most players announced on Saturday on social media follows a tweet by a student about the death of George Floyd that prompted outrage on campus. We are demanding that Kansas State University put a policy in place that allows a student to be dismissed for displaying openly racist, threatening, or disrespectful actions toward a student or group of students, the players said in the letter they posted. We have resolved that we cannot play, practice, or meet until those demands are heard and actions taken. We love Kansas State, but we must stand together and protect all students moving forward. Oh, they're taking a knee. Send in the SWAT team. Hell, send in the National Guard. On Thursday, 1 month after Floyd, we all know, was a black man who was killed by a white Minneapolis police officer because the police officer pressed his knee on Floyd's neck for almost 10 minutes, choking him off, and let him die there, and then kept his knee on his neck for about 2 minutes after he was dead, all on film camera, of cell phone video camera for the world to see while it happened. Well, student Jaden McNeil tweeted, "Congratulations to George Floyd on being drug-free for an entire month." Well, that's pretty heartless, isn't it? McNeil describes himself as the founder of a conservative group called America First Students, which Kansas State says is not currently registered on campus because of a lack of membership. America First students had already drawn the ire of students for past statements made by McNeil. McNeil previously said America First Students is a mainstream Christian conservative organization that supports President Donald Trump. I'm shocked. Considering that Vlad has put bounties out on U.S. servicemen, no wonder the AP has chosen to have anonymous worker bees bring us this last offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Fret not, we still have the chef's table ahead. A North Dakota Army National Guard unit that's actually based in North Dakota, because that's how that works, you know, they're state National Guards. Well, they've been told they're going to be called up to active duty later this year in Washington, D.C., the Guard said. The unit consists of about 70 soldiers and operates the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter. The Guard said in a release that their mission would be to transport personnel and light cargo within the nation's capital. Oh, you mean buzz also about 20 feet above everybody and let the rotor wash, act like a big hurricane and knock everything down, break trees on people's heads? You mean like that? Light duty? Light cargo? North Dakota National Guard spokesman Bill Prokopik said the possible mobilization is not related to protests over racial injustice. Sure. He said the unit was expecting the notice and deemed it routine support, which is never done. What are you talking about? Routine support. Major General Al Dorman, North Dakota Adjutant General, said the Bismarck-based Company C and Battalion 285th Aviation Regiment has a safe operating record of nearly 150,000 flight hours dating back to 1958. Well, I'm sorry, Trump destroys all those norms. Are you expecting to have no injuries, since 1958 now? Please. He said some of their missions have involved wildfires and floods, search and rescue, and overseas deployments to Kosovo and Iraq. Really? Well, I guess you're pretty well damn prepared to use your medical UVAX to break a few bones. Well, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we are going to go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, Parts of Darkness. Spike Lee's The Five Bloods is a film about confronting past conflicts and traumas, personal pasts, racial pasts, nations' pasts, so it's appropriate, I hope, to look at the film's artistic and production pasts. So when Lee made BlacKkKlansman, it was based on a script by two white writing partners who found Ron Stallworth's memoir, adapted it to a screenplay, and approached Jordan Peele. Peele, after Get Out, was hot enough to connect these guys with Spike Lee, who put his spin on the flick with his writing partner since Chirac, Kevin Willmott. Thus, BlacKkKlansman. Lee's latest film, The Five Bloods, has a story that's a little more involved. Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo were two European-American friends and writing partners. They did Disney's Rocketeer in '91, but they'd always wanted to do a Vietnam War film, partly because their old screenwriting teacher was John Milius, who wrote Apocalypse Now. So they wrote this script, very Milius-influenced, about 4 vets, 3 European-Americans and 1 African-American, who returned to Vietnam to find the remains of a fallen comrade and to get a hidden cache of gold. Originally, DeMeo and Bilson had hooked Oliver Stone to shoot their script. One of their producers suggested a more Treasure of the Sierra Madre vibe with the gold, and so the script shifted that way. Then Stone dropped out. Our boys eventually hooked Lee, who reworked the script with Kevin Wilmot, to being about 4 vets and 1 vet's son, all of them African-American, because Lee and Wilmot knew what a lot of people don't talk about, that Vietnam was America's Black War, the first U.S. war to have desegregated combat, the first war where the percentage of enlisted blacks was higher than the percentage of blacks in the U.S. population. This background is important because it explains, at least to me, the cool pieces in front of me that didn't quite gel. Still, The Five Bloods is a great idea, it needed to be done, and Spike Lee was the one to do it. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Scientific American Assistant News Editor Sarah Lewin Fraser. And here's a short piece from the June 2020 issue of the magazine, in the section called Advances, Dispatches from the Frontiers of Science, Technology, and Medicine. The article is titled Quick Hits, and it's a rundown of some non-coronavirus stories from around the globe. From the U.S., a hiker found 2 rusted, unexploded bombs from 1935 on the Mauna Loa volcano on Hawaii's Big Island. The bombs had been intended to help divert lava flow during an eruption. From France, researchers report dinosaur footprints up to 1.25 meters long on the roof of a cave, likely coming from a type of titanosaur. Geologic processes buried and shifted the shoreline footprints, the cave's ceiling, 500 meters deep. From Kenya, a 20-year experiment revealed that cattle grazing areas frequented by elephants store almost twice as much carbon as areas that bar the animals. Soil in these areas also has higher nutrient levels. From Germany, in a Leipzig waste site, scientists found a soil bacterium that can break down components of polyurethane and survive the toxic chemicals released in the process. In Oman, daily growth rings on a 70-million-year-old fossilized mollusk indicate that Earth turned faster at the time, squeezing 372 days into each year. The creature's former habitat, a shallow seabed, is now on a mountaintop. In Australia, 7 new peacock spider species, including one with a Van Gogh Starry Night-like design, were discovered among crowdsourced photographs from across the continent. The spiders are known for their vividly colored abdomens. That was Quick Hits. I'm Sarah Lewin Fraser.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
The discovery of penicillin in 1928 by Alexander Fleming was one of the greatest scientific achievements of the 20th century. It's hard to imagine a world before the development of what many consider to be miracle drugs. However, just 90 years ago, antibiotics weren't available. Thanks to antibiotics, some common illnesses such as strep throat are now easily treated, whereas in the past they often led to serious complications. Antibiotics serve an important role in keeping you and your loved ones healthy, but it's important to remember that antibiotics only treat bacterial infections. Most common infections such as colds, flu, most sore throats, bronchitis, and many sinus and ear infections are caused by viruses and do not respond to antibiotic treatment. These infections can be overcome by simply treating the symptoms and letting the illness run its course. Unfortunately, antibiotics have often been overused, resulting in decreased effectiveness and an increase in antibiotic-resistant diseases. Antibiotic resistance, or the increased ability of bacteria to survive in the presence of antibiotics, has become a major public health threat that we all need to help fight. When a person takes antibiotics, they are at risk for possibly having a bad reaction to these drugs. Some side effects can be quite serious, or even life-threatening in the case of an allergic reaction or severe diarrhea. This is why it is very important to only use antibiotics when they are absolutely needed, and not for viral infections. Talk to your healthcare professional about the best treatment for your illness. If it is caused by a virus, follow his or her recommendation for treating the symptoms. Learn more about appropriate antibiotic use and how to feel better when you don't need an antibiotic by visiting CDC's Get Smart, Know When Antibiotics Work website at cdc.gov/getsmart/community.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Colorectal cancer is the number 2 cancer killer of men and women in the United States, but it is preventable. Early on, colorectal cancer typically has no symptoms. It starts with a precancerous polyp or abnormal growth in the colon, which can be removed without surgery. Several tests are available to find these polyps, so they can be removed before they turn into cancer. Screening also finds colorectal cancer early when treatment works best. Recommended screening for adults at average risk begins at age 50 and continues until age 75. Learn about screening test options and find out which tests are covered by insurance. Talk to your healthcare provider about when you should be screened and discuss the best tests for you. For more information about colorectal cancer prevention, please visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. The 13th Amendment, ratified in December 1865, outlawed slavery or involuntary servitude throughout the United States and its territories, thereby finishing the work begun by President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation of 1862-63. The Emancipation Proclamation abolished slavery in the states that were members of the Confederacy, but not elsewhere. The 13th Amendment said nothing about citizenship and equal civil rights for the former slaves, especially their right to vote. These matters were later taken up by the 14th Amendment in 1868 and the 15th Amendment in 1870. The 14th Amendment granted full citizenship to African Americans. The 15th Amendment guaranteed the right to vote to men regardless of their race, color, or previous condition of servitude. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
DACA lives, for now.
Soy Javier Luengo Garrido, organizador de la ACLU de Massachusetts, y este es el Minuto de Libertades Civiles con el abogado de ACLU, Bill Newman.
The Supreme Court, 5-4, has ruled that the Trump administration's order to destroy DACA was arbitrary and capricious, a violation of the Administrative Procedures Act. In a word, illegal. DACA, Delayed Action on Childhood Arrivals, a President Obama-initiated program, allows immigrants brought to the United States as children to continue to live here without fear of deportation for renewable 2-year periods. To be eligible for DACA, an immigrant must have lived continuously in the United States since at least 2007, must have come to the United States when younger than 16, must be in school or have achieved a high school diploma, or have been honorably discharged from the United States Armed Forces, and may not have been convicted of a serious crime. Most of the 800,000 young people who applied for DACA arrived when they were 10 or younger, so this is the only country they've known as home. Immigrant rights advocates applauded the decision, but the Trump administration vowed to revoke DACA again. DACA-eligible immigrants are safe from deportation for the moment, but they still must live with enormous uncertainty about their future.
El Minuto de Libertades Civiles es posible gracias a ACLU, porque la libertad no puede defenderse a sí misma.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. This day in labor history, the year was 1917. That was the day that American folklorist Archie Green was born in Winnipeg, Canada. His father was a Ukrainian refugee who had fought in the 1905 Russian Revolution. As a young boy, his family moved to Los Angeles. There, he enjoyed listening to cowboy songs on the radio. Archie grew up to become a shipwright and a carpenter, but he never forgot those cowboy songs. At the age of 40, he returned to college at the University of Illinois to study labor history. He wanted to learn about the songs and the stories at the heart of the U.S. labor movement. He was interested in what he dubbed labor lore, the folklore of working people. For 7 years, Archie led the effort to get Congress to pass the American Folklife Preservation Act. Finally, in 1976, Congress unanimously supported the act. The act allowed for the founding of the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. The center helps to collect the stories of the working class. Archie wrote books and essays about workers, including miners, tinsmiths, millwrights, and the Sailors Union of the Pacific. In 2007, he helped to edit the Big Red Songbook. The book includes the lyrics of nearly 200 labor songs. These songs had been included in various editions of the Little Red Songbooks published by the Industrial Workers of the World between 1909 and 1973. Archie Green understood that workers' stories deserved to be remembered and told. He spent 5 decades as a scholar and advocate for these stories. His work has helped to preserve the record of working class life in America for generations to come.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 57 degrees Fahrenheit, a bit warmer today than we were over the weekend. Expecting a high in the upper 70s to low 80s, winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour with partly cloudy skies. A few passing clouds tonight with lows in the mid-50s, winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then tomorrow, highs in the upper 70s, low 80s. And partly cloudy skies, and winds will be out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus are now at 98. We went up quite a few from last week, and we actually haven't quite got the numbers from over the weekend to today, but they will be out in a few hours. Grass pollen in right outside the window here at the mothership is high. The air quality index isn't too bad. It's in the good range at 26 parts per million, though that daytime UV index is very high at 9. Take care. Please take care. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.07 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles, and relative humidity is at 84%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 68 and partly cloudy. Paris is 74 and sunny. Rome is 87 degrees and sunny. Kyiv is 82 and fair. Kabul is 80 degrees and fair. Hong Kong is 82 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 75 and mostly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 55 degrees and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 58 degrees and sunny. And New York, New York is 81 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Tia Goldenberg of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A court ordered the release of a former Air Force general and leading critic of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from jail yesterday, Sunday, a day after hundreds of people protested outside the Israeli leader's residence calling for him to be freed. Retired Brigadier General Amir Haskell has been a leader of the protest movement against Netanyahu, demanding that the longtime leader step down while facing charges of fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribes. Haskell and several others were detained on Friday in what police said was an illegal demonstration because the protesters blocked roads. The arrest of Haskell, a former top Israeli Air Force general, has turned him into a symbol of the protest movement that opposes Netanyahu's continued rule. Demonstrations have been held regularly around the country, with protesters waving signs reading "Crime Minister" and calling for Netanyahu to resign.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Danica Kirka, also of the Associated Press, brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. The Rolling Stones are threatening Donald Trump with legal action for using their songs at his rallies, despite cease-and-desist directives. Yeah, well, good luck. Get in line. The Rolling Stones aren't the first and only ones, and they won't be the last. The Stones said in a statement their legal team is working with music rights organization BMI to stop the use of their material in Trump's re-election campaign. The BMI have notified the Trump campaign on behalf of the Stones that the unauthorized use of their songs will constitute a breach of his licensing agreement. If Donald Trump disregards the exclusion and persists, then he would face a lawsuit for breaking the embargo and playing music that has not been licensed. Well, unfortunately, the Rolling Stones don't know. The Bill Barr has a secret OLC memo that says Donald Trump can use any copyrighted material anytime he wants, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it, because he's Donald Trump, and Bill Barr has that OLC memo that no one knows about but Bill Barr. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know that Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we'll meet up tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.